I'm Julie from This Beautiful Farm Life, and today I'm going to be canning dry beans in my pressure canner. So when you can dry beans, you can't do them in a water bath canner because it doesn't have enough pressure to make it safe inside and have all the bad things killed. So you have to use a pressure canner. I have been using this pressure canner for about 3 years now, and I love it. It's an all-American brand, and it's really made in America, but I love to support American made, and it's a really heavy-duty workhorse. I have other canners that I have used over the years, but they just do not have the sturdy, heavy-duty quality of the all-American canners. This is a really big one. I think this is model 930. It holds 14 quarts of canned goods. I love that because, you know, we have a big family, and so I like having this larger canner, and sometimes I use the larger canner and my older canners that I don't like as well at the same time on my big 3-burner cooker, like your camp out cooker. I use that sometimes in my back porch and fill up more than 1 burner. But today I'm just going to be doing this here in the kitchen. So you might be asking, why do I can beans, dry beans, when they're so cheap at the store and you can cook them up in your Instant Pot? I love canning dry beans because in our family, we're busy at the farm, and so it's really like fast food. It keeps us from going out for dinner, and it saves us a lot of time and money and energy in the kitchen on the day of the meal prep. So I can quickly put together 14 quarts of beans in this canner and have those on the shelf ready to go. I also do pints, depending on what kind of beans I'm doing. So I buy my dry beans in 25-pound bags, usually pinto, red beans, navy beans, great northern beans, black beans. I've done some pink beans. It just depends on the year, kidney beans, and what I'm wanting to do with them. Today I have a pan that was supposed to be all red beans, but as I got to looking at it, I think there's kidney in there too mixed, but that's fine. We use them all pretty much the same way. We put them in our tortillas, we put them in our burritos, we put them into chilies, we put them into soups. We use them quickly for quesadillas with beans for lunch, things like that. So they're just really versatile, and they're a great protein for you and your family, and a really cheap way to feed a crew. So I just really highly recommend that you learn to can with your pressure canner. So here we go. So the first thing you want to do when you're using a pressure canner is use just a few simple steps to make it safe. And this pressure canner has a gauge on it, which is really great so I can see what the pressure is, but I cannot rely on that to be safe. So if you ever purchase a pressure canner and you don't purchase this one, which also comes in smaller sizes if you want one not quite so big, it comes with a weighted gauge. So no matter what canner you get, make sure that it has a weighted gauge. This is your safety to know that you have cooked that food at the right pressure so that it is safe to eat and you're not going to get sick. So this gauge comes in 5, 10, or 15 pounds of pressure, and where I am, generally do it on the 15 pounds of pressure because I'm just a little over 1,000 feet and I need to have my pressure set a little bit above 10. So I use the 15-pound gauge because that keeps it high enough that I know it's safe here. The other thing that you want to do before you use your pressure canner is look. This is the spout where it vents off. This is where any extra heat would steam off if you had too much pressure or whatever. This is where the gauge goes. You want to be able to hold that up to the light and look through it and make sure that you can always see daylight through it before you use it to make sure that it's not clogged and it's going to be safe to vent off if you need it. So this one is really heavy. It's very, very heavy. It has these great locking mechanisms all the way around. So I know it's going to stay put together. It's not going to come flying off the top. And I love that I can put so much in it. I can also put 19 narrow mouth pints and maybe 17 or 16 wide mouth pints. So I really love this model just to get it done. So the first thing that we're going to do is add some water to our pot. And you want to have 2 inches of water in the bottom of your pot. Then in the bottom of your pot, you're going to put one of your little baffles. You can see that they're just a little bit thick and they have holes in them so the water steam rises through. So you put one in the bottom, and then the second one will go on top of that first row of jars that we put in there. So one other thing you want to do every 3 or 4 times that you use your All-American, because there is no gasket in this lid, most lesser canners have a rubber gasket in it. This is a metal-to-metal canner, which is really great. If you don't want to be replacing that, a metal-to-metal canner is really great. And you want to take just a little bit of petroleum jelly and put that right around this rim where the lid comes down, and that will keep it from sticking on that. It'll help it to open well and not scratch the edge. So we don't want to scratch that. So I just do that every 3 or 4 times that I use my canner. Okay, so we're ready to do some canning. So the first thing you want to do as you get ready to fill your jars is to put your hot water on your lid. They just need to have some good hot water poured over them and just sit there for a few minutes so that they're nice and tender on that inside ring so that they'll seal down nicely. So I've got 7 jars here so we can fill our first level. So let's get started with that. So we've got our first 7 jars full. You're probably wondering about these beans. These beans were soaked overnight, and so they're fairly soft. I don't cook them. Some recipes say to put boiling water on them, but I haven't done that. But I started this with 14 cups of dry beans because you want about a cup of beans per jar. And so I'm just going to divide this evenly amongst my 14 jars, and then I'll know how much I'm putting in. And then we're going to just simply add some salt to them and pour boiling water over them, put the lids on, and put them in the canner. That's all we have to do. So let's get started. Okay, we've got all of our soaked beans put into the jars. Now we're just going to add a teaspoon of salt to each jar. Now just so you know, salt is not required for canning. It is just for flavoring, and so you can leave the salt out if you have a salt issue. So I'm just going to turn my burner on to low so that water can be just at a low simmer. I have this great little tool. It's a magnet, and it holds your lids so you can grab them right out of that hot water without burning your fingers. I usually fill my jars to about right at that rim line. If you go too much further, then they want to boil out a lot in the canner and make a big mess. So once you have your first layer of jars in the canner, then you're just going to put your ring on and cover that up. And it will sit right down on top of those jars and make another level surface for the next round of jars. Okay, my jars are all in, and we're ready to put that lid on. First of all, we're going to look at our canner. On the All-American canner, there's an arrow right here that shows with a little notch right here that shows when it's latched, it's lined up with the notch. So it has a little hook right here. You're just going to slide it over and set it on there. Then it has all these, and I'm just going to put these up and tighten them kind of opposites first. Just hand tighten them a little bit, and then we'll bring up the other ones until I know they all will come up evenly. And then I just tighten them all down. Good and tight. And we're ready to go. So we're going to turn the heat up and bring this to a boil inside the canner. We're not going to put the weight on just yet. We have to let this vent steam out for 7 minutes. So that way we know that there's full pressure inside there because it's been steaming out. So we're going to wait now and watch for that to start steaming out. Okay, so our vent has been steaming off for 7 minutes, and all I'm going to do now is place my weight on there, which you can see I used a towel because it is pretty hot steam. And now we're just going to wait for this gauge to come up, and this weight will not jiggle until it gets almost to 15 pounds, which you can see is way over here. But this will jiggle when it gets to 15, and I know I've passed my safe zone. And I will probably turn my burner down just a little because it's kind of high once it starts to jiggle, and I will turn it really actually almost all the way down to the simmer point, because if I don't turn it down that far, it will just jiggle and jiggle and jiggle. This is a really good stove and a heavy duty canner, and so it doesn't take a whole lot of heat to keep it so steady. Okay, so my canner has just reached almost 15 pounds and it's probably going to start to jiggle in just a minute. From my elevation, which is about 1,020 feet, I have to use the 15 pound gauge. If you're at an elevation of anywhere from 0 to 1,000, you can use the 10 pound hole on the gauge. There's all 3 sizes on there. Okay, so there it goes. Now, it's going to let some of that pressure off because it's kind of stuck there for just a minute. And I jiggled it because it started to go by the 15 pounds. And now it's going to let off some pressure and come back down. So I'm going to turn that down now to a pretty low simmer. And I will watch that gauge and listen to that rattle rock. And as that settles down, it'll settle in there where it just jiggles once every couple minutes. That's enough for me. If you're holding it out of 10 pounds of pressure and you don't have a gauge, then you need to have that rocker rocking a couple, 3 or 4 times every minute so that you know that that pressure has stayed there. If it drops heat and it doesn't rattle for a few minutes, then you need to start your timing over because you have to keep it at that pressure the entire 75 minutes or the entire 90 minutes that you have it going. So it's really important that you keep that rattle very consistent. So now it's stopping because my pressure is back down to 15 pounds and I turned my burner down. So it's going to not rattle probably for a little bit because I'm going to let it cool down just a little bit and not stay right at 15 because I don't have to from my elevation. So I know that sounds a little confusing, but it's really pretty easy, and this All-American is really stable. I can set my burner once I get it set where I want it. I've learned from my burner it's almost clear to simmer all the way at the bottom of my gas burner. Then I can just leave this and it'll stay right where it should on the gauge for 90 minutes. With my lesser brand pressure canners like my Miro, they don't hold as well, and I have to do a little bit more jiggling. Sometimes they want to start jiggling less, but then I turn them up, and then they want to jiggle too fast, so I turn them down. But with the All-American, it's very stable. So now we're going to time that for 90 minutes, and then it will be done. And all I have to do is just let it cool down. Now, since it's coming on to evening, I will just turn it off right there on the burner and leave it on to cool all night, and I'll open it in the morning. And then I can just store my jars safely on the shelf for the rest of the year, and they're ready to go for any meals that I have need for beans. So, okay, we're back in the kitchen. I left this pot of beans to cool overnight, and then I even went to church, and now I just left it here. It's fine, and I'm ready to open it now. So let's open it up and see how the beans did. All we have to do is just unhook all these. All you have to do is wait until there's no sizzling or anything out of this style, and then you'll know that the pressure is down and you can open it up if you don't want to wait overnight. So now we're just going to unlock it. And lift it off. And so since the jars are cool, I don't need a jar lifter, but if you were to open that a little sooner, they might still be warm. Oh, they have actually a little bit of warmth left in them. And there they are, all canned up. So we can take them out now. And usually before I store my jars, I take all the rings off, and these are cool enough I can do that, but always wait till they're completely cool. Then you can take the rings off, and I wash them really good, and I store them without the rings, and that way I know that there's not a false seal or something because the ring is holding it on. We want to have this to be a really good seal. And if it's not a good seal, you'll know it because you can't hold on to the jar like this. So hold on to the jar by the lid and you'll know that it's good. So there you have it, canned beans in your pressure cooker. I'm glad that you joined me for this tutorial. I hope that you come back to the farm and visit again. We'll talk about more fresh, nourishing food, wholesome living,